Hi everyone, Tony Tonkin here from Child Protection Department. I was going to say Department. Tony, get your act together. From the DCP, Child Protection Party. Glad you could be with me today. I've got a very important conversation that we need to have, which is about the continual abuse of children by the department itself. Now, not long ago, the Hyde Report did a report into the number of children that were, they believed, potentially at risk and still living with their biological family. Now, as a result of that particular report, the department decided they'd race around and investigate all these parents and their kids, and they removed a number of those kids, I think about 20 kids out of the 500 that were identified, but they went around and checked on all of those families. What we've discovered recently is that they're failing to check on children who already are in care and who need the department to step in and either improve the situation in which those kids find themselves or to have those kids removed from the carers. Now, there's an article in the Advertiser today which highlights this very point. And I wonder how many children there are, this is about Caden in this case, but I do wonder about how many children there are in care who are unsatisfied that with the type of care that they're getting, where they themselves are being abused and the department simply turns a blind eye. And in this particular case, there's no doubt that Kathy Taylor was responsible for this child, failed to act, and is another reason why it is appropriate that she leaves. And so what I want us to focus on today is the fact that this has happened, that these children are being neglected while in care, and we need to make the department accountable for what they do. There's lots of changes happening within the department at the moment. I can appreciate that. There's a new chief executive that they're going to try and hire. Heaven forbid that turns out to be someone like Kathy Taylor. But nevertheless, there are these changes. However, it doesn't alter the fact that the blaming seems to take place around biological families. They're the ones that the Hyde Report pointed out. They're the ones that all the other investigations indicate that where there are issues. But we're ignoring the fact that there are many issues sitting amongst the department itself. And each one of us needs to be mindful that this is happening. We need to hold the department to account so that changes can be made so that our children can be safe. If they have to be taken away from their biological families for whatever reason, and we accept that that needs to take place on many occasions, then we need to make sure that the department, because they're doing that, because they're the ones saying that they are the better parent, then we need to make sure that they are. And in many cases, they are not. So one has to wonder, how are they supervising, how are they managing foster parents? In particular, I know foster parents have a whole host of issues of their own, which looks very much like the sort of issues that parents have. But why aren't foster parents viewed the same way, assessed in the same way as biological parents are as well? So I'm going to come to this article now, and if you're online, please have a discussion with us about what you think about this. Have a conversation with me about what your attitude is, your beliefs, and the experiences that you've had that may very well be similar to the one I'm about to explain to you, and about children who reach a certain age, 10, 12, 13, 14, who can speak for themselves, who can talk to somebody about the abuse that they're receiving in care or how they view their care experience so that can be rectified. And in many cases, as was the case here, to be returned to their biological family. Now, in this case, I'll just read most of this article to you, and I do thank the Advertiser for bringing this to our attention. It's very important that they do so. The Child Protection Department accused of doing nothing on starved boys' plight for years. So Caden's carer neglected the vulnerable teen so badly he looked like a starvation victim. A chain was put on the fridge. He was locked in his room, and authorities let it happen. Caden's eyes well up with tears when he thinks about what he went through, and I think that there are many kids who would be in the same experience today. He manages to smile talking about life now, but it hasn't been an easy few years for him. I nearly ended my life, the 16-year-old said, sitting at his kitchen table. I nearly did until my friend calmed me down. For 7 years, this is interesting, for 7 years, Caden was neglected by a carer. Now, this is, as I understand it, this is one carer. So it wasn't like he's moved around. This was one carer who cannot be named for legal reasons. And that's a shame, because this carer should be called out for the abuse that they caused this young person, to the point of serious illness and malnourishment, despite years of warning to the Child Protection Department from concerned relatives. And of course, often what we see is that the relatives become irrelevant in terms of the notifications that they make, because those notifications are seen as punitive, as trying to get back at the department. So they're not believed, because for some reason, sometimes foster carers are held in such high esteem because it's difficult to find foster carers generally. So the department is reluctant to remove them, even though they're being abused, as they were in this particular case. He said he was starved, strangled and beaten, despite asking repeatedly for the help from the department workers who he said visited once a week. Now, note this. The workers visited once a week. Now, when you see the condition of the house and when you can see the condition in the room that he lived in, you'll understand the distress that can be caused by workers who are supposed to protect this child, unable to do so, even though the conditions in the house were horrific in themselves. And even though he was saying to them, this is unbearable, this is how I'm living. And physically you could see that he was being harmed. Surely they must have seen the locks on the fridges. Why did the department choose not to respond when it was obvious of the issues that beset this young person? I can't believe it. I think it's something we all should be outraged at, and something we should all note that if there are any changes in the department, one change needs to take place, and that is kids need to be heard. At 15, he weighed just 46 kilograms. The average weight of someone that age is between 52 and 56 kilograms. I wanted help, but no one listened at all, he said. I've been putting my hand up for help, but no one listened. I tried and tried. It is understood the department involvement with Caden's carer dated back as early as 1992 and involved her own children. So I'm assuming that there were notifications made about this carer's children. And so why is it that she had the care of a GOM kid, a government kid? Why did she have care of him if there were issues raised about her own children? Now, we don't know the details of that, so I might put that aside, but there is enough indicators here to say this wasn't an appropriate carer for this young person. She hit me a lot of times, Caden said. I have scars from what she's done. When he was fed, he was forced to eat on a cushion in the hallway while others in the house ate at the table. And I've heard of situations similar to that over the years. Why in the hell do we allow that to happen? I wasn't allowed to sit at the table. An image obtained by the advertiser shows a chain hanging by the fridge in the house Caden and his younger brother Benji, who's also back in his mother's care, thank God, lived in. It was used to lock the fridge at night so he couldn't get food, Caden said. I was sneaking enough to get some, he said. I was always hungry. He would wonder where the next meal would come from. What child should have to wonder about that? What child should have to wonder about when they can be and can't be fed? What child would have to feel so isolated from the rest of the family that they were placed in a hallway to eat on a cushion? Absolutely appalling. I could see his heart pumping through his chest, said Caden's mother Mel, recalling that the first time she got her son back in her care after years. His sternum was sticking out. After his rare meals, Caden was forced back into his bedroom, which had been equipped with cameras, alarms and locks, so he could not leave. So, in other words, this kid was living in a prison. And somehow the department believed that was acceptable. I don't want a camera in my room, he said tearfully. I couldn't get out. If I escaped, they'd call the cops on me. How many times do we hear that? They barricaded my windows. I couldn't get out. Another photo of the home Caden lived in showed the outside of his bedroom window barricaded with a bed frame. Caden said the nights spent alone in his room with nothing to do were the worst. I can imagine a kid sitting. Imagine what a kid for years it would be like being caged in this way. Having to sit there night after night, day after day, feeling disrespected, feeling hated perhaps, in the way that Caden had been. Being treated like an animal, in other words. Poorly treated by an animal. In December, I've been playing imagination for 2 years, so just to play stuff in his mind. In December 2021, the Child Protection Department received further reports about Caden's welfare, particularly his weight. When department workers attended the home, Caden was taken to Flinders Medical Centre, where he was treated for severe malnutrition. He was taken to hospital, for Christ's sake. I said, "Where am I going?" Caden recalled. Staff found no medical explanation for his low weight. Oh, okay, not being fed might have been one of them. He was kept in hospital for a week, during which he gained almost 1.5 kilos before he was placed in his mother's care. So clearly at this point, some years later, the department had woken up to what had happened. Still, they failed to care for this kid. In the years he spent in the other person's care, the Child Protection Department received more than 20 reports regarding Caden's welfare, including reports of inappropriate physical discipline and excessive punishment. Allegations Caden was being neglected and receiving inadequate food were also reported to the department. Documents related to Caden and obtained by the advertisers show reports were made in writing to the department as early as 2017 in a letter from one of the boy's relatives to Child Protection Department Chief Executive Kathy Taylor. But it is understood initial reports were made in 2014. And this is one of those cases where parents are making continual reports to the department about the care of their children. I experience that every day, where a parent has said, you know, I've noticed my child has got a sprained ankle, or my child has got bruises on his or her arm and legs, and that this never happened when this child was in my care. The child is going to hospital a lot and I'm not being told about it. So I don't know what's going on with my child. I'm concerned about my child. I want you to do something about it. And they don't, because they see themselves as the better parent, even though there are many cases such as this where the kids are actually being abused while in care. Goes on to say the letter to Miss Taylor said Caden appeared malnourished and emaciated, and his ribs were noticeably visible. The letter also raised concerns over filthy living conditions in the home. It was like the House of Horrors, Mel said. What child should live like that? She said Miss Taylor, who resigned from her role as head of the Child Protection Department last month, never responded. Never responded. And the reason why they don't respond is because they don't believe parents. They believe parents are saying things just in order to get their kids back, that the parents are punitive in their behaviour, they're bad parents, so who should friggin' listen to them? That's the attitude of the department, and it is so wrong. Mel said Caden's condition was so bad that when he returned to her care in January 2022, he shook uncontrollably and couldn't read or write his own name. We had to teach him everything. How terrible is that? In 2019, reports were also made in writing to then Child Protection Minister Rachel Sanderson about Caden and his brother's welfare. In response, then Acting Deputy Chief Executive Sue McDonald said the department had a mandate to investigate situations where a reasonable suspicion exists that children or young people are at significant risk of serious harm or neglect. That's bullshit, because you don't do that. This is a case where you don't do this. There are many other cases where you don't, because of the attitude you take towards parents, because of the mother blaming and parent blaming that you do. Following such assessments, DCP determined the matters raised did not meet the threshold of child protection intervention. What are they talking about? They've had all these notifications, probably from parents, I get that, and relatives and others. but they choose to do nothing. Absolutely appalling. When Job Jones said safety protection of young people was taken, how many times, this is a mantra, it is not. It is not. This is a case where it is not taken seriously. You are responsible for the damage that's been done to this child. I hope that Mel and the son find a way to sue the asses off you because you've done the wrong thing and you need to be held accountable. When the safety of the child cannot be maintained at home with family supports, further action is then taken by the department, the spokeswoman said. That is a lie. That is an aim, an objective, but it doesn't mean you're doing it. To protect the privacy of children and young people, the department does not discuss its involvement in it. We're discussing it now. This is out in the public. The advertiser's talking about it. In the past year, Caden has gained about 20 kilograms and started to live his life again. I'm allowed to do things here, he said. Despite battling to maintain his composure, Mel is glad her son is back on track. He's a normal teenager now. And the issue I would have with that is that what child should ever have to go through what Caden went through? What child should ever have to go through any of that? I do not know. So if you've got any comments, please make them. So I've got some here from, there's a few people that have. I really appreciate that. Christy Marie says, my house is 3 meals a day. If you're hungry in between meals, we have fruit, yogurt, snacks. It's self-serve. No one goes hungry in this house. And Becky says, see what scares me about the state. They don't give a damn about the kids. They get abused, and the state people don't care one bit. The state people and their kids should have to go through this stuff. And it's so true. So I just want to say thanks for everybody coming on board. If you've got a comment, please make it down below. If you're watching this on YouTube, then could you please subscribe and ring the bell to improve our numbers there as well. And also, I just want to say that if any of you have an issue such as this that you'd like to talk to us about or have an interview about, we at CPP would be delighted to be able to interview and tell your story so that people get to know and understand what's happening for you, just as they have now through the advertiser and through Caden and his mum Mel. And I do congratulate them for coming forward and talking about their case and what that has meant to them as well. And if you'd like to contact me, contact CPP on the email below. Please do so as soon as possible so we can get your story out there and let other people know what your experiences are. So thanks, everybody. Thanks for being with me. Take care. Look after yourselves. And more importantly, be safe.